Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Thuzell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. In the town of Geraldine, Alabama, we're your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television two different ways: North Alabama, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and then worldwide all over Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And we're really excited. Australia is going to be coming up pretty soon, and that's going to be over 1 million more listeners. Really excited about that as well. But thank you, because Sherrie, Hiett, and I know that you could be doing anything else, but you're watching us right now, and we definitely appreciate that. Sherrie Hiett is the executive director, and she is, I'm going to make sure I've got your title right. Executive director, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Family Services of North Alabama. And Sherrie and I are friends. We've known each other for a really long time. And so you've been the executive director how long?
I was named executive director in April of 2018. So they've put up with me for over 4 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing to put up with. I'm going to tell you what, I love the drive you have, and I love your heart, because you've definitely got a heart for this.
Thank you so
So
much.
now there are folks who are out there listening worldwide. They may decide they want to donate and help you out, guys, out as well. So, but let's talk about what is this organization all about?
Well, so years ago, well, actually, I say years ago, but probably just maybe about a year ago, if you were to ask me that question, I would be naming off all these services, and probably after service 3, you're going to be like, what was service 1 and 2? Because we do a lot of different things. So what I did back in August of 2021 is I separated the programs, and I said, we're going to be doing everything workforce development and education and victim services and prevention. So we have 2 main programs where all the services fall under. And so for workforce development and education, basically in a nutshell, because we have 3 different grants that fall under that, we take, we're able to work with families, we're able to work with parents, non-custodial and relative custodians, and we're able to work with those who are on SNAP benefits or food stamps, and we can get them into the workforce. And so one of the great and unique things about us is that we can pay for people to go and get like a welding certificate or a phlebotomy certificate, medical assistance, forklift driving. We can pay for anything certification. We can pay for that. And while they're coming in and doing that certification and they're learning about resume building and job skills training, we can pay them $10 an hour for 30 hours a week for up to 8 weeks while they're doing that. Because the thing is like, if somebody said, hey, I want you to get a certification, and it takes 12 weeks, but you can't make any money while you're going through that certification, I wouldn't be able to live, you know? So that us being able to pay them while they're doing that, it kind of helps them in the meantime. And so that's the workforce development part. The education part of that workforce development education is we have an internet safety program. And so we can go into the schools and we can talk about online trafficking. We can talk about online grooming, how to keep your kids safe online, how for kids to be safe online, teach them how to do that. And then on the other side, the victim services and prevention, we work with ages 14 and up. We provide forensic exams or the rape kits in our office in Marshall and DeKalb County, instead of them having to go to a hospital. Here at our office, it's more confidential. It has a more warm atmosphere. Now, if they're emergent and they can't leave the hospital, then we will absolutely go to them. The prevention part of that is we go into the schools and community settings, and we talk about healthy and unhealthy relationships. We talk about the red flags. We talk about how to keep your kids safe, and sometimes living in a vulnerable atmosphere, how we can spot that and how we can put some boundaries around that. Now, right now, like I said, we work with ages 14 and up, but we're about to start doing what we call SANE P, and that is sexual assault nurse examiner for pediatrics, and that's 13 and under. So right now we do SANE A, which is the adolescents and adults, but we're about to start working with 13 and under, and we'll be able to provide those exams for children in both of our counties, because right now they're having to drive all the way to Huntsville or Birmingham. And so if you're in Marshall County, that's about an hour, but if you're in Ider or Valley Head, you're going to be driving about 2.5 hours just to get services. And then a forensic exam can take about 4 or 5 hours.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, and then you're a friendlier atmosphere too. Not that they're not friendly in Birmingham. I'm just saying we
Yeah,
take care of our own here. We're all a bunch of big mother bears. We're mama
that's right.
bears.
That's
And
right.
here, we're going to take care of those kids. So
Yes.
let's talk about that for a few minutes because I'm going to tell you something. That's something. I'm not a violent person, but if I saw someone harming a child in any way, that violence might come out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, in DeKalb County alone. Now, this was in 2019, and I think I'm getting this number right. It might be off by two or three. But in 2019, I reached out to the DeKalb County Children's Advocacy Center, and we partner with them very heavily. We partner with Marshall County Children's Advocacy Center as well. But on this day, I reached out to the DeKalb County CAC, and I asked them in 2019, how many forensic interviews did you do for children? And
Uh-huh.
this is in 1 year. And I might be fudging on these numbers by about three or four, two or three, something like that. But they did 304 in 1 year. Now, that is terrible in itself that even has to happen. But the FBI statistic says that for every one that reports, there are 10 that go unreported. So those 304 that they did, those are just the ones we know about.
Mhm.
And you can imagine there are hundreds that we'll never know about. They don't have the capacity to be able to speak up and tell someone, or they're afraid to, or whatever the situation may be. So that's just in DeKalb County alone. I
Mhm.
don't have those numbers for Marshall County, but again, that was pre-COVID. Post-COVID, we're finding out a whole lot more about exactly how many more were abused during that time. So
Well, there was no escape time. I mean,
yeah,
at least when you could go to school, the kids could get away from it.
right. Yeah. And I've always said that a stressed abuser is much worse than just your typical abuser, because people were stressed about money, they were stressed about jobs, they were trapped at home, they couldn't get out and go do the norm. And so children and partners, the spouses, they were trapped with abusers. So yeah, that same P element. One of our goals as family services in North Alabama, one of our goals is to find some of those things in our counties that we have a void. We may need certain things here, and if we can fill those voids, we try our best to. And so Sane P is definitely one of those. Before us was Sane A, the sexual assault nurse examiner for adolescents and adults ages 14 and up. They were also having to go to Birmingham or Huntsville. And so when that happens, you have people that don't have reliable transportation. They don't have money for gas. And then when they find out, wow, I've just been traumatized, and now I've got to drive 3 hours, and
Yeah.
I've got to sit through an exam that's going to be about 3 or 4 hours, maybe more. And then I got to drive back, and I don't have money for gas. I don't have money for food. You lose people. And when that happens, that trauma just begins to increase, and they find unhealthy ways to cope. And so that's what we are here for. We want to keep victims and survivors in our county. Because we're in Marshall County and in DeKalb County, they only have to drive about 30 minutes to get to us.
Mhm.
And we're taking up like gift cards and gas cards, food cards. So if people say, I don't have the gas to get here, we can say, if you can just get to us, we're going to give you a gas card, and
Mhm.
you'll be able to make it.
That's absolutely awesome. I was talking to our sheriff, Nick Weldon, right here in DeKalb
Love
County. He was on
him.
the show, and he's an awesome guy. And I'm going to tell you what, there's no way that, I mean, there are a lot of things that happen in this county we're not aware of, but he was telling me about a stop. It was just a routine stop. And looks like the folks were coming in from Birmingham going into Chattanooga, and there were men in the car, and then there were young girls who could speak no English. First
Yeah.
of all, you're in this country, you can't speak English. That's a handicap within its own self. But if you've
Right.
been promised a good life, a better life, and it turns out not to be one, that's called human trafficking.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
worse. So thank God they were there, and
Yeah.
they rescued those girls. And
Yeah.
but they noticed the fright because that's what these trained officers are.
Yeah.
And so they know what to spot, they know what to see, and they could see the fear in the girls' eyes that were in the back seat. And so they were able to do something about that. what are some things nobody wants to be nosy?
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
times that, but there are times that I will be nosy. And
Yeah.
that's when it comes to people who are being abused, whether that's a man or a woman
Right.
or kids especially. What are
Yes.
some signs that we could notice, that something's just not quite right in
Yeah.
a household? What are some of
Yeah.
those things?
Just about, I'll name about two or three right now that is easily spottable. Is if you, now I understand there's a lot of kids who are very shy and they don't want to talk, and
I
so
was a shy kid.
yeah. You were shy.
Yeah, 1977 Geraldine High School, quietest. I'm holding up a sign in the library.
I did. I could not even imagine that. Well, you have come out of that, and I'm grateful that you have.
A lot of mentors, a lot of good mentors.
There you go. So a lot of kids are shy, but when you have some, especially a child who is just unnaturally shy, they have this fear in their eyes, and they're always clinging to someone, or someone is constantly having to speak for them. Especially when it's an adult. When you see an adult, particularly a woman, but it can be a man or a woman, who won't even make eye contact. They won't, if somebody asks them a question, they have somebody right there answering for them. So those are some of those red flags. You're like, why are they not talking for themselves? If you see someone who will not leave their side, particularly in a hospital, like somebody who is going to be there to speak on their behalf for every single thing, then you know, like something
Yeah.
is just a little off here. If you have, especially like at gas stations, particularly those who are off the interstate, if you have, if you're in a gas station and you see, and again, it can be a man or woman, but if it's a woman and they just go straight to the bathroom, but a man is like right there waiting for them to go in and waiting for them to go out, typically they're not going to be left alone, and they're not going to make eye contact, and they're not going to speak for themselves.
Is it
And
because they're afraid that the victim will run away?
yeah, and they're afraid that they're going to say something that will give it away, like I need help, or something that will kind of allude to I need somebody to help me. And it's a little bit more difficult, I think, sometimes to spot in a child, because you do have children who are just very shy, and so you have parents who are there that's going to speak on their behalf. But if you see children who maybe can't, like if they say, where are you from or what, and they can't answer some of those questions, they may not know where they're from, they may not know where their home is, or they may not know their address, and they're old enough to know their address, or they can't give their address, things like that. Those are some of those red flags that I think people need to really be aware of. And back in 2019, I was invited by the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office to come to a training about human trafficking. And at that time, we really didn't.
You got to catch that call?
No, ma'am. That is actually a call about a rape response. Okay, so our advocate on call will catch that. So in 2019, I was invited to come to this training, and at that time, we didn't really talk about human trafficking a lot. We didn't research it, and we were not trained on it a whole lot.
Well, we didn't think it could ever happen here. We're just thinking like,
Yeah.
Atlanta, Chicago, New York.
Yeah, you think about these big cities, or you think about the movie Taken. A lot of people think about that. And so I went to that training along with some of my staff, and it was amazing. The Fusion Center was there, and Teresa Collier was the facilitator. And one of the things that she said was, when there's an exchange of money for a crime, then that can, for a human, that can be human trafficking. And it's like my eyes were open in that very moment. A large majority of the people that we serve are being trafficked. They're being sold over and over by their parent for a hit of drugs. They're being sold by their partner, by their spouse for a hit of drugs. And so you can imagine with Sand Mountain being called Meth Mountain, and we have these issues, the drug issue. When people run out of money to buy drugs, they'll typically become desperate and will do anything just to get a hit of drugs. And so if there's a child involved, if their partner, then a lot of times they'll say, here, you can have sex with them if you'll just give me a hit of drugs. And so in 2020, I went to my first End It Alabama Human Trafficking Summit, which was in Montgomery. And I asked Pat McKay, she's wonderful. She is the chair for the Human Trafficking Task Force in the whole state of Alabama. And I asked her, do we have anything in Marshall and DeKalb County? And she said, no. She said, the closest one's Huntsville. And I said, okay, hold on just a minute. So I got on my cell phone and I sent a text to Nick Weldon, who is amazing, Phil Sims, the sheriff in Marshall County, who is also amazing. And I thought this will be some good peer pressure. You know, if the one says yes, the other has to say yes. You know? So I said, I just found out we don't have a task force. Can I get one started? And I mean, just like that, yes, go for it. And they were so amazing in letting us do that. So we began the Northeast Alabama Human Trafficking Task Force. We wanted to start that in 2020, but COVID had different plans for us, of course. And so we really implemented it last year. And the whole goal is just to bring awareness and education. We're still learning about it. So anytime we have like a conference or a training, I'll typically bring in people from like the Well House in Birmingham or Trafficking Hope or from the Attorney General's office. And so we can learn along with the community learning. So we've got community leaders in place, our agencies in place to do it. So the whole goal is just to bring awareness and education to the issue and the different types of trafficking. So it's not just sex trafficking, it's drug trafficking, it's familial trafficking, it's labor trafficking. And with our the Latino population, how big it is here, you know that's going on. And I've always said, you can have sexual assault without human trafficking, but it's very rare that you'll have human trafficking without an element of sexual assault because it's just another form of control.
Well, it's that, and it's a big money maker.
Huge, the biggest.
People, I mean, they're probably the kingpins in that are probably making more money in that than drugs.
Oh yeah, it's the biggest money maker, and I'm so grateful. You know, we did in January of this year, we did a Go Blue Day. January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, so we did a Go Blue Day in Fort Payne. And one of the reasons we wanted to concentrate on Fort Payne was because that interstate. That this is one of the worst parts of the country for human trafficking, and people don't really understand that or are aware of that. They think this could not happen here. So we did a Go Blue Day, and we had blue shirts, and that's all we did is we sold shirts and we wore it on one day. Of course, we had to change that day 2 or 3 times because of snow. But
I remember that.
Mr. Jett, the superintendent of Fort Payne City Schools, was absolutely amazing. He allowed all the students to go blue just on one day. On the same day, the whole city of Fort Payne went blue. They even had it on the marquee of the DeKalb Theater, and people were going and taking pictures there with their blue shirt on. And so it was just an effort to say, hey, this is happening here. We're going to buy these shirts to bring awareness to the situation, and we're going to be educated on how to prevent it. And so I really appreciated Fort Payne for that. So this coming January, we want to try to do that again, as well as Collinsville, because as you know, that interstate's running through Collinsville as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I wanted to bring awareness about people who are new to the country, maybe they're brought in. I love people. I don't care where they come from. I mean, it's just, you know, I'm one of those, and you know, because I've been asked about that before. You know, my daughter-in-law's from Russia.
I did not know that.
She was brought here when she was 9 years old. I used to pray for my son to get into a great family, and he did.
Oh,
These folks are
wonderful.
awesome. So they actually went to Russia. Now, you can't do this anymore, but this was back in the day. And so they go to Russia to pick up Larissa's baby sister. Well, Larissa's 9 years old. They were just about ready to throw her out on the street. She's living in an orphanage. And so there were 2 little girls who kept walking around and following Debbie and Jim. And so she asked the administrator, she said, who are these 2 little girls who are walking around? They're following us everywhere we go. And she said, they're sisters of the baby you're about to adopt. Well, it was the most pitiful orphanage you've ever seen in your life. She said it was dirty. It was just horrible. So they get to the hotel room. You have to know Debbie and Jim. They're just full of heart, you know. And so she said, she looked at Jim and said, Jim, you know what I want to do? And he said, yeah, I'm afraid so. He said, but now we got to put a limit. You can't bring every child in the orphanage back home. Yeah. She said, well, I would love to have them all, but she said, I want the 3 sisters. I can't split them up. She said, I want to do that. And do you know they let them do that? They let them take the 3 girls.
Oh, yeah, that would never happen now.
No, you can't do it.
That is amazing.
So they give them a new life. But I wanted to walk people through what it's like for a child to come to a country where they can't speak their language. It was rough. And
Yeah.
so now they hired tutors, so that the girls speak English. They're very fluent. And as a matter of fact, they know more American history than we do. I
Oh,
mean,
well, sure. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and they're conservative girls, all conservatives, and
Yeah.
they love the country because they lived in another country.
Right.
What it was like, it was
Yeah.
terrible. It was a bad thing. But the first night they brought the girls home. And of course, one was a baby, so she doesn't even remember being brought in. But Larissa and her sister, she's about 2 years older than the other sister. And so they walk into the garage. They're in the United States, they're at the house. They come through the garage, flick a light switch, and Larissa freaked. She didn't know what a light switch was. And
Oh my goodness.
couldn't speak any English. And she's just looking around just with this amazement and then Debbie said, now she doesn't know what a light switch is, so show her how the lights were turned on. So
Right.
he was just doing the light switch up and down, up and down. She was so amazed because in the orphanage they had these lights. They were all on these kind of poles.
Yeah.
They were so high up that the kids couldn't reach them, and they had to sleep in the dark.
Oh
They
my goodness.
So it was amazing to her to have a light. All you got to do is do that.
Those
So
are the things we would never even think about.
we take these things for granted.
Yes, absolutely.
So be aware of people who come in from other countries because we do have it good here, even though we fuss and fight all the time
Oh,
for
yeah.
politics. We
Yeah.
still got the best country ever,
Yes.
and we got to
Yeah.
keep it. We got to keep it good. But I'll not get off on that. But I just wanted to say there are people who are being brought in who are being taught, not like Larissa, where they're brought into a good home. I'm
Right.
talking about people who are being brought into this country or promised a great life, and it's human trafficking.
Yes.
It's not a great life.
That's
And it's
right.
turning into a disaster for them, and they're being mistreated.
Right.
So if you notice anything like that out of whack, I encourage you, please speak up, call the sheriff's department, do something.
Yeah.
What can folks do if they notice? Can they contact you guys, or do they need to go
Sure.
on?
They can call 911. Of course, they can call the sheriff's department directly, or our crisis line. It's specifically for victims of sexual assault, but we have had people call for a myriad of reasons, and that's okay. Because being in this field, we're open to a lot of resources that they may not know about. And so they can call 1-855-878-9159. And if we know of a place, then we will give them that number and we can direct them there. Or United Way, they have a 211 for help. And 211 for help is a national thing. And what you do is you call 211. Now, this is not for an emergency, of course, but if people need help, they can dial 211, and then they have to type in their zip code. And so when they type in that zip code, it will take them to a live person, and they'll say, hey, I don't have money for this, or I need help with this, and they will give them a resource. So they can call our crisis line, of course, but 211, 911, your sheriff's department. If you see someone who you feel like is in danger, please call.
It's
Absolutely.
okay to be nosy. It's okay.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah,
be saving somebody's life.
that's right. And you just really never know. And we're very intentional at Family Services in North Alabama on when someone shows up on our doorstep, we want to know that there's someone here working in our agency that looks and talks like them, because that automatically brings trust, right? So we have a bilingual advocate. Her name is Zyra Parga, and she's amazing. Zyra has really taught us a lot about the Latino community, about the trust and the distrust they have, about why they're skeptical of this or why they're skeptical of that. And one of the things that she's taught me, because, and again, I know, like you said, we don't want to get off on this tangent, but one of the things that I've learned from her is when we talk about people coming across the border, we see it on our side. And we see the threat that we have with that. But what Zyra has taught us so much is how desperate they must be. What kind of life are they trying to flee from to get to the United States of America? And so that is something that I always think about. What kind of danger are they running from? They might be, when you see parents who are giving their children to someone just to take across the border, how desperate they must be to give up their child just so they'll have a better life. And so I think about that. And I think about people who, they come to the United States, they can't speak English, and people take advantage of that. And then they'll say, if you don't do this for me, then I'm going to turn you in and you're going to get deported. If you don't do this for me, then I'm going to call the authorities and then you're going to have to go back to where you can. And that in itself is a source of fear for them. They'll do anything. And so it's very concerning. And that's one reason we implemented what we call the Cultural Connection Committee, because we serve a total of 6 counties in different capacities. And so every month we have representatives from what we would call the underserved communities. We have Black, Haitian, Latino, intellectually challenged, faith-based, LGBTQ+, and male. Those are some of the many underserved communities. And so we have representatives on a Zoom, and we'll just ask them, what are some of the obstacles that you're facing? What can we do to help? Teach us more about your community so we can build a better bridge to them. And we just feel like it's really important that we're going to serve all people. We don't care about your status. We don't care about your income. We don't care about what you look like, how you love. We don't care. We just want to make sure that you're getting the resources that you need.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so unique too, because a lot of it we just don't understand. We don't know, and this is another thing. Stay off of all the news channels.
Yeah,
you got to know what's going on around you. You've got to, but there are other sources to do that. Because if you hear one person's side over and over, you're going to get ignorant information.
That's right.
And I think that's what the problem is. I think we don't understand. My whole world was opened up with Larissa when she came into the family.
Yeah.
She's from Russia. I could care less. A human being. And she has brought so much into our family, so now we'll say she's eager to learn and she wants to be the best American citizen ever. I mean,
that is amazing. If we were all like that, how great it would be.
But I think it was because people could actually see what she came from.
Right.
And she got into the right family.
Yeah.
They were just like, to me, these people are just angels. They're much better than I could ever be. And so my son did marry into a great, great bunch.
What is that quote? Condemnation is easier than investigation.
Yeah.
And it's really
knowledge.
True. Yeah. Condemnation is easy to just sit there. I am, so a friend of mine, we always talk about this. She is very macro. She sees things on a big level. She sees national policies. She sees presidential this and Congress this. I'm a very macro, but micro person. I see the person in front of me. I see what is going on in my town or in our agency or in this what she sees this and I see this. Mm-hmm. And so what I encourage people to do is, like you said, we can listen to a certain news channel. We can hear about all these things that are going on a national level, but they're not necessarily going on here. And so I encourage people, just look at the person in front of you. Look at the person in front of you. Do they need help? How can I help them? How can I make this little spot of my world better? And so I think a lot of people get hung up on the macro. Not that that's not important, but sometimes if we concentrate on this, we miss this.
Yeah, you miss that most important person who could be a really good friend in your life. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you said this one time on the show, bloom where you're planted.
Yes.
You've said that a lot. And so, and I've taken that to heart. Now, do I care what happens in New York and Chicago? Yeah, I care. I really do. But I also know that one person can change in one little tiny town. One person can help change the world.
That's right. Absolutely. And I just encourage people, look at the person in front of you and like you said, turn off the TV every once in a while, get out and see what's going on in your world. We have a member of our board of directors and she's Latina and she has taught us so much as well because I'm constantly trying to learn about other cultures and she said, we have to remember what's going on with the Latino community nationwide is not necessarily happening right here in our area. It might happen at some point, but it's not right now. And so that really resonated with me because I was like, I think people are judging our are seeing in a bad light a group of people in our area because of what a national news source is saying. And I'm like, let's just look at this person, not all of this right now.
I don't
And
believe the national media anyway. I don't believe anything because I think it's really to divide us all. And I'm not going to let it happen in my world. It's not going to divide us. And
that's right.
there's a reason people come to get a better life. And we can all learn from each other, but we can't look at it and be spoon-fed about what a particular group is like. We've got to go into a commercial break.
Yeah.
And, we'll be back in just about a little bit over 2.5 minutes, and we'll be right back in. So y'all hang in there, okay? And I'll take you off the video and put you right back in, okay? How about that?
All right.
The Hiett Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hiett Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. We are back. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. In the town of Geraldine, Alabama, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications. That's for North Alabama. And worldwide, we're on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire, soon to be in Australia. Do you think I'm going to be able to fit in with those folks over there in Australia?
You know what? The question is, are they going to be able to fit in with you? I think that's the best question.
There you go. And thank you, Rob. Rob Patz is an awesome guy. He owns the Abundant TV. And Rob, we definitely appreciate you. And thank you, Rob, for letting us be part of it. We definitely appreciate it. Absolutely. I've got Sherrie Hiett with me, and we've been talking about a number of things. Family Services, North Alabama. She's executive director. And so let's talk a few minutes about jobs, because I'm going to tell you what, I mean, getting a certificate can make all it can make all the difference in the whole wide world. You don't have to worry about college debt. Yep. None of that stuff. Yep. Get a good job, pay your house off in no time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Pay cash for a car. Those are the kinds of jobs you're looking at.
We have, we're very fortunate. We are what you call a family resource network center. And there are, I'm not exactly sure now how many, I think there's about 20 something in the whole state of Alabama. And we are one of those. It's kind of like an accreditation. We're in the middle of this network, and it's amazing. And it allows us to take a more holistic approach to the family. And so if we see something in our community that would better the family that maybe we're missing, we may be able to step in and say, hey, I think we can provide that. And it's an amazing network to be a part of. And so I say all that to say, because of Family Resource Network Center and because of Children's Trust Fund, we are able to pay for certification classes. If somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to be a forklift driver, or I want a CDL, or I want to be a welder, or I want to be a phlebotomist, we can pay for all that. Somebody came in one day and said they wanted to be a physical fitness instructor. And so those certifications are expensive, and we were able to pay for that. And it just changes a whole life. And I know, here I am, I went to college and all this, I got a bachelor's degree, and I'm so grateful for it. But I know, man, they're going to be going through a 12-week course, and in a matter of no time, they're going to probably be making 2 or 3 times more than me, which is great. I'm so excited for them because it betters the whole family. It improves the dynamic of the whole family.
And here you go, Sherrie, helping one family at a time. And
Yeah.
I mean, just think about this. If you only helped one family a day,
Yeah.
I mean, think about how many, and the economic impact it can have right here in our area.
Yeah. There's so many kids right now living in stressed environments. And really, one of the main reasons is money. And just as well, everything has, the price on everything has increased. Gas has increased. And you go and my parents were talking the other day about a dozen eggs, how expensive just a dozen eggs are now. And so everything is, the inflation has just it causes me, everybody, we're stressed about it. And so I can't imagine, I have 3 dogs. I don't have children. So I can't imagine how stressed I would be if I had children that needed school clothes and school supplies and they needed school band uniform, whatever it might be. And so to be able to have a mother or a father or a relative custodian come in saying, like, I'm a grandmom and I'm raising my grandkids and I want to go back to school and get a certification, we're like, okay, do you meet these criteria? If you do, we're going to send you off and you can get that certification. And we're also going to provide case management for them as well and say, okay, if you need this, you may need other things as well. What are some of those things that you're needing? They may need money for a house. They may need housing deposit or rent money, or they may need uniforms. Like if you're a welder, you got to have
Steel-toed boots. You got to have those steel-toed boots.
Yeah.
And those are pretty expensive.
And we can pay for those.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really neat thing. Now, there's been a really big push in the state of Alabama for community colleges to be more focused on trades. So of course you've got Northeast and you've got Snead State, who are, they're right at our back door, and how amazing they are. They have some of these same programs. And so it's not that we're doubling that program, but we're adding to. So for example, and I'm almost positive about Snead. I can't say for Northeast for sure. We had a meeting with them. They can't pay for gas cards or food cards. If somebody says, I want to be able to come there and sit in class and do this, but I can't afford the gas, we can pay for that part of it. Or we can pay for, like I said, it's called the pay to learn model, that we can pay $10 an hour for 30 hours a week for up to 8 weeks while they're doing this stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's an element that these community colleges don't have. And so we partner really well with them to say, okay, if you can do this, we can do this, or we can't do this, can you do this? And so we take this holistic approach, and we're able to help them, which in turn helps the whole entire family.
Absolutely. I wanted to mention another guy. His name is Randall Ham, and you and him, y'all are really good friends, and I'm friends with both of you. So I'm in the best world, y'all.
Yeah.
I've got the best friends. So Randall is with Kairos Prison Ministry, mm-hmm. and so he has really enlightened me. He said there are a lot of people who just hung out with the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
And they made a mistake. They did something dumb, and so and we all do dumb things.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm surprised I'm not in jail at some point. Yeah.
Well, and he made me see the light here. Randall and I were friends before then, and so he started working with Kairos Prison Ministry. And he said, I'm going to be on your show and talk about that. And I'm like, let's hurry up and get this over with.
Yeah.
And I think he saw my attitude. He saw my attitude.
Wow.
And because we're friends, he helped me see another attitude.
Yeah.
And he said, Donna, any of us could be where they're at right now.
Absolutely.
We could have just been hanging out with the wrong crowd. We got dragged into that situation as well. And I went, whoa, got me right here.
Absolutely.
I certainly did. And that is true. So sometimes people make mistakes, Sherrie, and they
Yeah.
make mistakes and they think, well, there's no redemption for it. I'm just messed up the rest of my life. I can't have a better life. But
Yeah.
you've got that program that will make sure they can have a better life. Let's talk about that a
Yes.
bit more.
Well, so one of the things, and Randall, he is just absolutely so amazing, and he'll put you on the right path now. He'll set you straight about some stuff. But that's what a great friend does, right? And so, and he is so true, because if I had in my younger years been caught, I would absolutely be in those same situations. Any of us. And so, if not for grace, right? That's what I always say. Well, in 2021, we teamed up with Legal Services of Alabama. Legal Services of Alabama, they serve every county in Alabama. They are a nonprofit legal care agency. And Lori McFalls, she is amazing. She called me one day. Well, actually, Judge Mitch Floyd, he's the drug court judge in Marshall County. I hate to brag on him. But he is amazing. I hope he doesn't see this.
Don't tell him.
Don't tell him I said that, but he is absolutely amazing. He actually hooked Lori and I up, and he said, y'all need to partner your agencies together. I said, okay. Well, Lori called me, and this was early 2021. And she said, okay, this is who we are. This is what we do. And I said, okay, that's really cool. And I thought, they'll be great to partner up with. And then she started talking about Governor Ivey, Meemaw Ivey. She signed the Redeemer Act. And the Redeemer Act, I think she signed it maybe in June or July of 2021. But basically what that says is some nonviolent felonies and misdemeanors can be taken off your record without court costs. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I thought, well, that's really neat. Yeah, that's cool. And she said, would you like to partner, and we can do what you call an expungement clinic? An expungement, just getting those things taken off people's records. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Well, Donna, my family, I thought, well, this is going to be really cool, but I had no experience in that realm of like charges and felonies. And, I've had some speeding tickets, a lot of those, but other than that, so I was like, yeah, that'll be great. And we called it the Road to Redemption. And what a great name for it, right? So we decided we're not going to do it at a courthouse, because some people may be concerned about coming to it if they had warrants, or if they had bad experiences, whatever. Mm-hmm. So we did our first one, the first one ever in the whole state of Alabama. We did it here in Marshall County in Albertville at Albertville First Methodist Church, which is Mitch Floyd's church. Mark Adams is the pastor there. And so he so graciously allowed us to have it. And I started seeing the power of this expungement clinic. We were going to have it from 10 to 4, and we only advertised it on Facebook, and we went to Celebrate Recoveries, because we weren't really sure like what we were stepping into, and neither did Legal Services. They had never done one either. So we were the first in the state of Alabama to do it. And when we got there at 9 o'clock to set up, it was our whole agency and Legal Services. I think they brought maybe 2 or 3 lawyers. I'm really not sure. By the time we got there, there were over 30 people waiting for us.
That's
Some
awesome.
had driven from Coleman. And I was like, well, there's a lot of people here. Well, Legal Services, they got on the phone and had to bring more lawyers in. And there's 2 parts of this. Like they have to sit down with the attorneys, and they have to explain like what's going on, and they have to get their records and all that. And then they have to get fingerprints done. Well, nowhere in Marshall County is there a mobile fingerprinting unit. So what that meant was some people, they were being brought from like rehabs or halfway houses, and so they didn't have transportation. So it was the coolest thing in the world. We saw the pastor of Albertville First Methodist Church driving that bus, and the drug court judge, Mitch Floyd, riding with them to go get their fingerprints. And I thought, what an amazing visual that was, to see these 2 people teaming up to help these people who have been coming for expungements be able to better their lives. Well, so what we did while we were there is, if people are coming for expungements, they may have other needs as well. So we were able to reinstate some people's license. we were able to say, okay, you need a housing. Okay, let's see what we can do about a housing deposit. You need clothes. Okay, so let's see if we can get you clothes. So it was like a one-stop shop. And in total, there were over, I think, 40 something people who applied for expungements that day. The next week, we went to Fort Payne, and we had it at Fort Payne First Baptist Church. The pastor so graciously allowed us to have it there. We did the same thing. They had to go to the sheriff's department, get their fingerprints, which we were able to pay for their fingerprints. But what I started learning, and we had over 40, maybe even 50 something that day. So we had almost 100 people in 2 weeks that we helped get some of this stuff off their record. But what I started learning was some people were coming in with 15, 16 charges. And so if you have to pay court costs for each charge, if anybody's ever had a speeding ticket, just the speeding ticket, you know how much it is. If you've had to get your license reinstated, you know how much that can be. So these court costs for each charge, it was so expensive. So I always tell this story. There was a guy, when you think of a guy who drives a motorcycle, you know, the big burly guy, this is the guy that you're thinking about, right? He comes in and he goes to, used to go to my church, and he was really tall, had a big long beard. He was in his 60s. And this is what he said. He said, Miss Sherrie, and again, like I said, he was in his 60s. He said, Miss Sherrie, I got caught with weed in my car when I was 19.
He's paid for it ever since.
He said, for all my life, I've had that felony on my record. He said, I've been poor. There's, you know, I've got kids. I've had to try to, and he said, I've been driving a truck, but I can't go across state lines because I have a felony.
Yeah.
So he came in, and he had other charges that piled on top of that, because what he started doing was, he said, I got desperate because I had to feed my kids,
Sure.
but I had this felony. So it was like this domino effect. You know, I was getting more charges for this and that, and it just became my life. So I talked to him for a little bit, and I was like, man, that one nonviolent felony started all of this. Well, a couple of days later, I saw him, and I didn't say anything to him about the expungement clinic because I didn't know if people, he didn't care. He came up, he's about a 6'2" guy. He said, Miss Sherrie, he said, I'm not going to be known as a felon anymore. And it just, like, I teared up, and now he's driving a truck cross country, and he's making a ton of money for his family. And I thought, man, that expungement, that Redeemer Act that she signed, I finally got it. I understood at that point why that was.
He needed a chance.
He just needed a chance. He needed somebody to come in and say, hey, you can't pay for this. We can pay for some of this stuff, and legal services can get those. And of course, it takes a few months to get those expungements final. But I think in total, out of the almost 100 people that came, I think about 75% were able to get that stuff taken off the record. And I was like, that is life-changing. It helps children and their family be able to live in a better environment. It helps the parent be able to get a better job. They're not struggling for money. They're not struggling for food. And it just changes the whole trajectory of a family. And so, and now the expungement clinics are going on in the whole state of Alabama, but we were the first to be able to do it.
That's
and
awesome.
I thought, yeah, I was like, what an honor to be on the front end of that. So we were very grateful to be able to do
Well, it
that.
couldn't have happened to a better person also, because I've known you for years, Sherrie.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I've known you. This is what you live for.
Yes, I've been shown, here's the truth about it. I have been shown more grace than I've ever deserved. And so I think the grace that I've been shown, what a beautiful thing to be able to give that, and to see people who, whether they come in victim services and prevention, whether they come in and they've been raped, they've been trafficked, and they've lost all hope, we can step in and provide some hope and say, hey, you don't let us take care of this for you. Let us call about your housing, and they don't have to do anything. Or on workforce development and education, we have people coming in saying, I've lost custody of my kids. I've got a nonviolent felony on my record. My license has been suspended, and I just have no hope. And in this program, we get to step in and say, hey, we got you. Come in, and let's with a smiling face, we're able to do this. And so I just think the Lord has been very gracious to me in times, most times, all times, I don't deserve it, you know? And so how great we're able to just step in and say, let us do this for you. You know, we don't care about your status. We don't care what you've done. We don't care where you've been. We don't care what's going on. Let's just try to make this part of your life better.
Do you have situations where maybe a family, you know, sometimes families can be the worst. And so this person has, you know, they've made the change, they're doing all the right things, but then they have families who bring them down.
Yeah.
Can you help that? Because I'm pretty sure, and then sometimes people go right back into it again because they think, well, I got no support from my family. Why should I even try?
Yeah. One of the great things, whether you come in on victim services and prevention or workforce development education, no matter the path that's brought you into our agency, we've got people in both programs that provide excellent case management. And they'll say, okay, it's not just that we're giving you things, right? It's not just to say, we're going to give you this and give you that and give you that. But we're going to sit down with them and we're going to understand their family dynamic. And we're going to understand, like, okay, this has happened because of this, or this has been the pattern in this family. And we help them recognize some of those things. And hopefully, of course, you know, 100%, it's really hard to say that we've helped 100% of the people, because some will come in just wanting free stuff, or some people will come in just like saying, I want to do this. And they, like you said, go right back to it. But we try our best through our counseling program in victim services and prevention, and through the parenting classes that we provide in workforce development education. We try our best to help them recognize some of those patterns and help them understand and provide education on how to get away from that. Not necessarily leave your family behind, but to say, this is not very healthy, so this is what I've got to do to better myself. Mm-hmm. And so we try to provide that case management and that counseling to help them recognize that.
Well, and I'm glad that you see both sides, because I have an uncle that he led a pretty rough life, and he always promised my aunt, I'm going to do better. He'd come back, I'm going to do better. But she had the grace with them.
Yeah.
And so she stuck with him. But now that doesn't always happen. You know, sometimes, right. And so the victim has to think about this as well as the person who's making the wrong decisions.
Right.
Because, I mean, you got to think about it from both sides. Okay, so you've told me 10,000 times you're going to change.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it this time.
Yeah.
You know, but then he has, or she has to prove they've changed, that
right.
they want a better life. So how can they prove it to the spouse that they've told 10,000 times, I'm going to stop doing this, and they get right back into it again, but they've really made a change this time?
Yeah. You know, something that we have learned, so in our victim services and prevention program, we have prevention education. Mm-hmm. And our prevention educator will go into schools and community settings and talk about healthy and unhealthy relationships. They'll talk to fourth grade all the way up to 50-something-year-old, doesn't matter, 60, 70, 80. But one thing that we have learned is when we start talking about healthy, unhealthy relationships, the number of people, no matter the age, that will say, I didn't even recognize that was unhealthy. Because they've either lived in it all of their life, they were raised in it, especially the children. When we talk about this is not healthy, and some kids will say, I didn't know that. Or some kids will say, I thought that all fathers would touch their children like that. I mean, we've heard some of these statements, or we've heard some girls say, I thought all women were talked to like this. Especially in the Latino community, that's something that Zara has taught us. It's what they call the machismo mentality. And the machismo mentality is the man knows all and rules all. And so they set the standard. They'll say, yes, you can do this. No, you can't do that. Yes, you can wear that. No, you can't wear that. And so when we start to talk about these things, some children are like, I didn't know that wasn't healthy. And so then we can step in and talk about why this is healthy, why this is unhealthy. And so I think that if you're talking about an adult, like the question that you just asked, I think that there's got to be this standard of, okay, this is not healthy. I recognize it. And these are the steps that we can take to make this healthy again. And really, I think it's just a matter of time. You know,
Well, and then to the person who is mistreating the other one,
yeah,
it's probably how they were raised, and they probably think, well, they probably really do love that person. They're just
yeah,
afraid that they're going to go away.
yeah. That element of control, it's really, really hard for someone to give up when that's all they've ever seen and it's all they've ever known. And so in our victim services and prevention program, we don't just provide counseling and therapy for the victim, but we also provide counseling and therapy for the secondary victim. Because if it happens to your loved one, it happens to you. And you feel these things that maybe you can't express to them, and they're feeling things that maybe they can't express to you. So then you can talk to an advocate or a therapist that we provide, and we can't tell the other person that's what they're talking about, but you get to express this stuff. And so I think for a lot of people, it's exactly like you said, that's what they've been raised in. And they have seen it as this is just a way of life. This is just the way we do things. And what I've always said is if you recognize it and you do something about it, then that's healing and that's correcting it. But if you recognize it and you refuse to correct it, then that's where the issue is, I think. That's when the person that is the victim in that says, okay, they recognize it and they're not doing anything to correct it. So maybe I need to go on. Maybe I need to leave this situation because it's never going to get better.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing, a number of things I really like about Sherrie Hiett. And one of those is this forgiveness spirit. And, there are a lot of people will look down on the woman. I have a new hero. The new hero to me is the woman who doesn't have the abortion, but the woman who goes on ahead and has the baby and realizes that she can't take care of it and frees that baby and gives it up for a good family on adoption. I don't look down on that woman at all.
Right.
That woman's a hero to me.
Yeah. We have, of course, we're a rape crisis center. And so when Roe versus Wade was overturned, we had to look at some things. And because there's a big rumor that's going around about every rape crisis center is that we provide abortions in our agency, and we do not. And so we have had victims to come to us and say, I got pregnant by my abuser. And so we present three options. We present the continuing pregnancy and the adoption. We present keeping the baby, and then we also to raise themselves, and then we present the abortion. And so we let them make an educated decision, and because it's not us, it's them. Obviously, when Roe versus Wade happened, we had to look at some things. But what I've understood is that society, the state of Alabama now has a huge responsibility, because if abortion is now illegal in the state of Alabama, which it is, then we have to make sure that these victims who are saying, okay, I got pregnant by my dad and now I've got to carry this baby to term, we've got to make sure that they've got the counseling that they need, that they've got the resources that they need to keep the baby safe. And if they want to give it up for adoption, that they have those resources as well in the therapy and that. So there's a lot of things I think the state of Alabama, we have to look at now and say, okay,
adjust.
Yeah, we've got to adjust, and we've got to provide these resources. Some are in such extreme poverty, and they're like, I can't afford to take care of myself. How can I afford?
Less than 30 seconds left in this segment. How can folks get in contact with you?
So they can, the crisis line, of course, is 1-855-878-9159. They can email Sherrie, Sherrie, at familyservicesna.org, or they can call my cell phone number. It's 256-612-4072, and our office number is 256-878-9159. So they
I'm so happy that we are friends. I'm going to tell you what, I love it.
I'm grateful.
Absolutely.